guess we're back to our second part. Bear with me because I'm not used to presenting no more. So I'm a little nervous. Um, so I will be talking about Saint Teresa de, I know I'm gonna say this wrong, Avila, Avila. Um, so a little background about her. For starters, I read up on her and what she did and the way that she speaks, and wow, like I think if I could describe her in one word, is like honest. I think that, oh my goodness. So, she was a Spanish Carmelite nun at first and was the first woman to be declared doctor of the church. So that in itself was like so powerful. She was best known for deep spiritual writings, which included The Interior Castle and another book, The Way of Perfection. Um, she was someone who insisted that self knowledge was the foundation to an authentic spiritual life with the Lord. Um, it was funny because when I read on her, she had said that when she finally chose a religious life, she did so because she thought that it was the only safe place for someone as prone to sin as she was. And never did I feel connected to such a quote as when I read that. Especially as someone who is coming back to her faith, um, who grew up as a cradle Catholic only. So yeah, that very much hit home, as we say. So back to her book. Um, in the book, The Interior Castle, she gives us insights to the power of contemplative prayer. She describes the soul as a castle made of crystals shining with light. So not our soul is something created so delicately and beautiful by God that it's something that we're supposed to treasure. We're a mansion. We're But then her book gets a little a little hard to swallow because she says that within our castle and within our mansions, we have rooms that we're supposed to go into that we may not want to go into. But at the center of our entire castle should be and is the Lord. Um, and even though he already knows what's in those rooms, the only one holding back from opening the doors in your castle is yourself. Um, so yeah, I want to buy this book now. I want to buy this book now. um, so another thing is that we acknowledge that prayer is also an indication of the soul, of the rooms in our mansion, which we then discover that our soul is the Lord at the center of it. But before we enter our first rooms, we have to acknowledge that we have to enter with, sorry, before we acknowledge our entire castle and we take it in, we have to enter the first rooms, which are humility and self knowledge. So Saint Teresa knew firsthand how easy it is to trust in one's efforts or be misled by spiritual pride. But for Saint Teresa, self knowledge is not the end, but the beginning of a true union with God. So a little quote from her book was that however high a soul may be, self knowledge is of the greatest necessity. It is true that some souls rise to great heights without it, but they have more reason afterward to return to the beginning. For the very foundation of all these virtues is that self knowledge I have spoken of, and unless we have it, the whole building will go wrong. Um, yeah, so that's from her book, Interior Castle First Mansion. Let's see, what else? I went out of topic. How does she connect to us as young adults? So for us young adults trying to grow in holiness, Saint Teresa reminds us that without truly knowing our thoughts, motives, and weaknesses, we build ourselves on an unstable foundation. Um, and how can you build a mansion with the Lord if your foundation is unstable? So that's a little question for yourselves. She teaches us that to be sanctified, we have to allow for God to shine light throughout our souls, even the darkest parts of it that we tend to hide away or not acknowledge. Opening up ourselves to the Lord 100% allows us to grow closer to Him and to deepen our transformation. Getting to know ourselves more and opening the doors to those rooms we want to remain locked is the beginning to a fruitful and deepening relationship with God. Um, so kind of on a personal level, because connecting, I feel like on some ways I connected with her a lot. Um, so on a little like personal level with her, like for myself. Um, I think that one of my biggest things as I grow closer to God and get more into the faith is that I am one of those people who are hesitant to open up to the Lord about certain topics. Because truthfully, I think that I would feel ashamed and heartbroken, and that I would feel that I was failing Him. And I think that as a young adult, that's something who is, as someone who was in the secular world and now I'm not trying to be a part of it, but still around it, I think that that's something that is very, takes some time to like mold and have to open up to the Lord, where I'm just kind of like, okay, well, I'm getting to know you, but do I want to open these doors? Because the moment I open these doors, we have to have a whole different conversation. Um, but do I want it to be done? Yes. Is it going to take some time? Yes. But, you know, at the end of the day, I know that God is next to me and He's going to help me through it all. Because I want to add that someone once told me that God can truly handle anything and can handle anything. And what He wants the most is for us to be open and honest with Him all the time, even if we don't want to be. Let's see what else. So I learned that our Lord isn't someone who shames us, but instead teaches us and guides us to grow and continue to be better versions of ourselves every day. So I want to leave you guys off with a little question that I want you guys to take home and answer yourselves, or, you know, however it is that you want to take it. How can we be honest with the Lord if we can't be honest with ourselves first? Yeah. So that's kind of what I took out from Saint Teresa. Because yeah, she was honest about it. She clearly stated that if you don't know yourself, if you're not honest with yourself, you're on a rocky ground. You're on a rocky foundation, and that spiritual life isn't going to grow as you think as it would. Um, so I am one step closer to, as we've been saying, being completely naked in front of the Lord. Metaphor. um, but yeah, I I truly can't wait to get her book, because so I recommend that you guys get it too.
We should also think about is when we think of Saint Teresa's interior castle, so our soul, and how she mentioned that it has interior rooms. Some rooms we don't want to venture in because it's too scary or too dark, too mysterious. Yet somehow they're sanctified by the Lord. And what are those in our lives? And we can easily go into the rooms that are full of light. That's easy to do. But those rooms that are foreboding, that makes us question who we are truly, may answer who we are truly. So those things we should think about. And I've discovered many of those things in my life that I had to close the door to, because it's like, okay, Lord, you've shown me that part of who I am, but I know that I shouldn't dwell in there. It's part of me, but I shouldn't dwell in there. Yet you are here to sanctify it. So until that happens, I can't go in there. Actually, there are more than one. He'll always turn anything that we accept that that's far from Him, He'll turn that into something that will bring us closer to Him. But we have to pay attention, or else we'll miss the train that He puts in our path, so that we can go towards Him from that moment of shame and moment of guilt and moment of self hurt, self denunciation, all of that. Are we ready for Saint Therese de Lisieux? Yeah? Okay.
So, Saint Teresa of Lisieux is this young adult, actually. She died when she was 24 years old. And something cool that, something common about all these three saints is that they're all doctors of the church, even her at her young age.
Wasn't she the youngest doctor?
I think she still is. But like, does anybody know what the world would look like if all the flowers in the world were roses? Any takers?
Fire?
Yeah, fire. I mean, would a rose still have the same meaning if all the flowers were roses? You know what I'm saying? So that's pretty much Saint Teresa's argument as to like embracing who you are, because it wouldn't be pleasing to God if everybody's like the same. Like God made us with a very specific role in mind that is irreplaceable, and that role, nobody can like step into your shoes and do what God made you to do. It's only reserved for you. And so that's pretty much the basis of Saint Teresa's, um, like she self-titled herself like the little flower, because she realized this reality that like there's so many options of flowers out there, so many lilies, and then she took pleasure in the lilies of the field, where they're just like tiny little, flowers that are cute, and then but she found so much beauty in them that she wanted to be just like them, so that when God stepped like on the earth, he would see the little lily and be as delighted in the lily as she was. And so she decided to call herself the little flower and become the little flower. Uh, yeah, it says this is the story of a soul. This is her autobiography, and it says the autobiography of the little flower. So I encourage you to just be yourselves, even in your darkness or in your flaws, embrace them and invite God into them, because that's the way you can be sanctified. And so, a little bit about Saint Therese is that she was very sensitive, like from a little age. She was super sensitive to anything, and she was also the youngest of the family. And what's interesting is like the whole family is like five sisters, and they all ended up being nuns. And so, and the father and the mother ended up being saints. And so like she grew up in this super Catholic household,
No
and
pressure.
super aware of like the rules and of like the justice of God. And so like, because she was like the youngest, and her dad called her his little queen, she kind of became bratty. She became spoiled. But then, you know, she would do stuff, and then she would see like it would hurt her dad or her mom, and then she would become like super sorry about it, and that's how she began to like be self-conscious and self-aware about like what she does and what she doesn't do. um, so uh, so she struggled a lot with pride, uh, fear of failure, and comparing herself with her sisters. And later on, like when she joined the convent, she struggled a lot with like her fear of measuring up, because she joined the convent. She was like one of the youngest people that ever joined the Carmelites, uh, and she even had to ask permission from the Pope to enter into the Carmelites. So she came in like with such fervor, such love, but like developmentally wise, she wasn't at, like out there like the other sisters were. So like she kept getting berated for like how the way she did things. Like, you did this wrong. Um, you kind of suck at this. And so like she became very self-aware of her failures. And so like because of this self awareness, she decided that, well, she asked the Lord that, like, how come your justice is glorified through people's through their own sacrifices, and how come your mercy is not? And so she pondered upon this for a long time, and then I think it was like when she began, when she professed her vows, she asked the Lord, like, "Hey Lord, like, can I be a holocaust of your mercy?" And so, like, right then and there, like, when she professed her vows, she received this grace, this abundant mercy and love, and that's how she knew, like, she was gonna be like kind of like an apostle of mercy. So that's how she ended up just saying to God this: I am dearly confident that one day I shall become a great saint. I am not relying on my own merits, but I have because I haven't any. I hope in him who is virtue and sanctity itself. He alone, content with my frail efforts, will lift me up to himself, clothe me with his own merits, and make me a saint. So what she's saying is, like, I can't be a saint on my own. Like, I can't be holy on my own. Like, I have nothing to offer God. Uh, like, whatever sacrifice we make, if it's on our own merits, it doesn't mean anything if we don't do it with God on our minds, with love. And so her argument is pretty much that, you know, we just have to seek God above all else, and that way we'll be able to measure up to His love, kind of, but not really. But yeah, I mean, because all He wants is He just wants us for us to love Him. Um, and this specifically like calls to me because I discerned with the Carmelites for like about a year, um, and that's one of the things that I got from my discernment is that, like, at the end of the day, whatever call you choose, whatever, whether it be marriage or priesthood or religious life, like, God just wants you to love Him, and it's in seeking that love and seeking that relationship with Him that we grow in sanctity and holiness.
Saint Teresa and Saint Therese. One Spanish, one French. Oh, yes. Excuse me, Lord. So now we're going to do our second journal entry. Now, physical or on your phone, doesn't matter. So there's a lot of things we have to write about, and this is very important because we cannot truly grow in our faith without growing in ourselves, and we can't grow in ourselves if we don't know who we are. So we these exercises are meant to help us discover these aspects of our being. So, three things. First thing you should look into is recognizing the gifts God gave you. See, and then there are there's some major calling. This is your vocation, but He calls you to many things as well, minor callings. And your temperament, where is it most generous? Where is it lacking? What are your deepest desires? These four things. To honestly answer them is to truly know how and what God made you to be. And of course, second is learning to rejoice in your uniqueness as God's beloved. Just like we just heard, Saint Therese, well, all three saints today have made that as their message. I like that. What if all the flowers were roses? How would you feel about flowers? Yeah, someone said bored. And third, what are the influences of culture that bring you closer to Jesus? We usually think of culture to bring us away from God, but yet there are things about our culture that brings us closer to him. A lot of people have have commented when I tell them, "Yeah, I used to be an architect." They say like, "How did you go from architecture to priesthood?" That's the most like weirdest jump of a vocation ever. Yet architecture was my culture. That was the culture I grew into when I went to school in college. And I didn't realize that God was calling me into architecture, and because I went into college with an engineering major. I thought I was going to be an engineer, only because a friend of mine, she said, would you take an architecture class with me? I want to design my future house, and I don't want to take it alone. Myla, I don't have time to take a stupid class like that. Like, come on, please, just go. I'm like, all right, I'll just go. I, I ended up to have a really good time in that class, and I learned a lot. And there was this passion that was burning in me that like I want to know more. I want to know more about this. So I ended up taking a lot more architecture courses and went into that major. And I loved it so much that it was just I can't believe that this is what how God made me to be. Yet that was making me fall into the financial aspect of architecture, the administration, the business, away from design and being what I loved, which was being with the people, being with the clients, getting to know them, designing in their home or their business in a way where how they would love it, how would best exemplify their worth, self-worth. I love being part of that. I love making that into a reality, into their surroundings, into their daily life. And then yet the money aspect of architecture was calling me deeper and deeper, and I was rejecting it more and more. I didn't realize until later that um, God was calling me, that was using architecture to call me into the priesthood, because um, we we had projects that were to build chapels. One of them was a mosque. All these things that required knowing what faith is in many different ways, and that made me open up to like the dryness of who I was, the emptiness of who I was. That there's something that's calling me through these projects. Well, that's culture. That's culture. God uses culture too to call us towards Him. It's different for everyone. It's going to be different for all of you, obviously. Temperament is where temperament is like a spectrum of being very relaxed about something to being very passionate about something. So where are you in those things in certain aspects of your life? Yeah, you know where you're most relaxed and at home, and just you put up your feet on the couch and you're just like, this is I'm so good like this. And when are you like so excited about doing something, like I can't wait. I need to get people to help me with this and get this going, and we're gonna do this together. You know, like throw a party or something. You're all excited to do that. For me, it's like, oh, building something. Hey, let's build this shed, and I'm get my tools. Okay, maybe it's just me. I'm gonna start building this. I should show you what I built like for my apartment in Torrance. It was out of like some plywood and stuff. It was a little something. It's fun. So one of these apartments, you enter and you enter into a little courtyard. It's so small. It's like, okay, these pillars go towards this wall, right? Just a little less than that. That's the space I had to work with. So you enter the gate, and there's this space right here, and you can have a barbecue, and then go into the front door right there. So I created like a what do you call that? It's like what you would think you would discover in a Mirage. Like it's a raised platform with carpet on top, with pillows and plants all over, and like canopy above. So it's like a chill place. I built it for my sister because she just had a baby. I said, "Hey, I want you to relax and have a place of your own," and she loved it. I mean, all her other kids loved it too. So yeah, so it's things like that that gets me excited. Like, yeah, that's my excitement temperament. So I can write about that. And my relaxing one is, was it all of you who like going into the desert? Who was it? Who went to the desert? Which one? You? Beach, park. I like that too. So so those things like chill, like you just relax on the sand and just look out in the ocean. I love that. And those moments, yeah, God spoke to me. As an architect, I worked in San Pedro one time, and for my lunch, I'd go to Sorrento's and get a fish sandwich, and take it to the cliffs overlooking the ocean. There's a park there. I go, and at the railings, there's a bench right by the railings. And I'd sit there, eat my lunch, and look out into the ocean, into the stillness and peace of the grandness of the horizon. And God would call me. He would call me, and I was like, "Stop! Trying to eat my lunch. Why are you making me all emotional?" Those moments, those stillness. So these things are gifts of God. They're part of how He made you. And these are things that we need to discover ourselves, about ourselves.
Glory to God, I'm not the same. Your love lit up my daddy's name. When I was cold, you held me warm like Sunday.